You are listening to CFRO Community Radio Station. The upcoming show, Conscious Living Radio, is a program that explores frontiers of consciousness, spirituality, personal growth, emerging paradigms in psychology, health, science, and innovative philosophies that reflect commitment to the advancement of individual, social, and global transformation.
Tanuyap. Kuiget Yuans Kuyansna. Hi everybody, my name is Kuiget Yuans. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation and the Yagalanas clan of the Haida Nation. You're listening to Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We live, work, play, and broadcast from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Conscious Living. My name is Marc Caron, and we air every Wednesday in Vancouver on 100.5 CFRO Co-op Radio. Today, I'm really excited to bring on a local community guest, really, and he does a lot of great work with his partner, Crystal, here in Vancouver. His name is Shine Kelly, and he serves as the CEO of Unite, leading its vision, product development, team management, and marketing. His background spans business, wellness, music, education, and event organization. Shine's inspiration for wellness stems from personal experiences, including his mother's recovery from severe depression through alternative practices after traditional therapies proved ineffective. He is passionate about fostering community connections and creating innovative solutions to expand access to wellness. Shine, welcome to the program. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
Hey, Mark. So appreciate you. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Anytime we can share, pathways to health and wellness, transformation, consciousness expansion, especially in our local community here in Vancouver, it's always, a pleasure to bring these pathways to the people. And I know that you and Crystal do so much great work in the local area, and, you have a reach globally as well, that I thought it would be a great opportunity to have a conversation around the work that you're doing and let people know, if they're not already aware of the work you're doing with Unite, different ways they can explore different modalities for wellness. So, maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about your story. In your intro, you mentioned a little bit about your mother's depression, and I can certainly relate to that because my mother has certainly suffered with that over the course of her lifetime. But maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about your story and how you got onto this pathway to healing.
Oh, thanks, Mark. I so appreciate you and Andrew and Conscious Living and Michael here and just everyone who's doing this. I really, really appreciate you reaching out and having me on. My story. So when I was 15, my mom became very depressed. My father passed away. She is a PhD psychologist, had money, access to the best everything that money can buy, and nothing was working. Talk therapy, pharmaceutical drugs, everything was falling short. She was just kind of stuck in this space, and it wasn't until she sort of moved away to her hometown, found this alternative therapy called The Journey. Most people, especially back then, would look at that and just dismiss it as woo-woo. Oh, that'll never work, whatever. And it was a past trauma in the womb she had no memory of, obviously. And when she healed that, her depression was lifted after 5 years of like very, very deep, severe depression, sometimes just like bedridden. She was fine after 2 sessions. And so me as a 20-year-old seeing this, it was just a big kind of shock to my system of like, oh, how does that work? Like, how can the mainstream not help someone? And then this weird thing that sounds, woo-woo and off, like just kind of odd. How can that just have such a profound impact? So that really, really got me thinking about wellness and alternative wellness and what else is out there that's sort of not available or that people don't know about that could be really useful. And so that was a big part of what kind of shaped my desire for Unite. And yeah, I can get into more detail, but yeah.
Well, we'll definitely dig into that a little bit more. And, it's something that I can certainly relate to because my mother certainly struggled with depression all her life. And, we see it in the world today is really it's an epidemic. It's a pandemic
Mm,
of its own sort. Um, and it's unfortunate because there's so much joy to be had in life, as and I know we can mostly agree
mm,
on that one.
yeah.
And it's something that really strikes me as interesting. And I remember, in the work I've done with Tony and one of his partners, Chloe Madonis, who does a lot of great family work. One of the things she said that struck me really profoundly in regards to depression, because it was something that comes up a lot, was about, having a purpose and life purpose. And,
Mm,
so much depression, she would say, was, a lack of purpose, because we get so busy being busy, working jobs we
mm,
don't like. We don't know why we're doing what we're even doing. We're just working to survive.
hmm.
And we don't have, something that's juicing us and fueling us and inspiring us. And I know that, from in my mom's case, whenever she, was called to go help someone, all
Mm,
of a sudden she had purpose and she had clarity and she'd have energy. And all of a sudden, this depression that was kind of clouding her all the time just seemed to disappear.
mm,
And, it's easy to say in terms of, well, just have a purpose, though I know that there's more to it than that. And I think, the work you've been doing with Unite over the past number of years is quite unique, because you bring in so many different healing modalities into one event,
yeah.
where people can actually, you know, lack of a better word, sample them and see what works for them.
Yeah.
Um, and I think this just kind of begins the conversation we're going to have today, in terms of the work that you're doing and maybe what you maybe have seen to be really impactful. Do you see patterns in different things that help, different um, illnesses, chronic illnesses, or things of that nature? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that work you're doing and what you're seeing in that.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I don't really follow on that path of I don't have a good understanding of what's working for what people right now. That is one of the things I want Unite to do, is to have an AI that can learn both from all the science and the studies and everything, on the internet that exists, and stack rank it and learn what's most reliable, etc. And then also have an ongoing learning from testimonials and what people are going through, so that in real time someone could come on and it could our Unite platform, which is our wellness technology platform, it could recommend, say, to my mom, who would come on and say, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling this, feeling that. It could recommend something like The Journey based on what's worked for other people, what the research is saying, all that stuff. So I don't have a good sense right now of what is working for people. I can talk a little bit about what's working for me, and a little bit about sort of the speed healing and the events, and why people seem to like that.
Yeah, well, absolutely, because I know that there's a number of different um, you know, healers, if we refer to
Yeah.
them in that sense, people who are facilitating, health and wellness, and what they are doing, and what you're really seeing in terms of the impact on the people who attend your events.
So we've been hosting, my partner Crystal and I have been hosting events now for over 9 years. And we like to host Unite. The name of our company, Unite, it's all about bridging, bringing people together. So we like to always have our events be, 100-person plus size events. So bigger events. We'll always have vendors and healers there. And when we were first starting to do it, a lot of our vendors and healers were having an issue with making their money back, and they were just coming to us and saying, "Oh, I love being at your event, but I'm not really making money at the booth, and I'm not feeling like I'm connecting with the right people here." And I think it was Crystal who had the idea of, instead of, say, charging for a massage at the event, why don't you offer free mini sessions to people? So for like 5 or 10 minutes, they can get a sense of you, they can feel what it's like, And then if they want to buy something, let them buy after the event. And you can book it right now, but use the time at the event to connect with as many people as possible in these free mini sessions. So then you can sort of book your calendar afterwards. And all of a sudden, the healers and vendors started making more money and having more impact and connecting with more people. And so we started adding this, and we came up with the name speed healing. And so we started adding this in as like a core part of our events. So we'll do 3 hours of speed healing usually before the event, and then some sort of evening activity, whether it's breath work or ecstatic dance and things like that. So I think a lot of people might not try, especially some of these newer alternative modalities. Maybe they're not new. I'm sure, energy healing, I'm sure is one of the oldest in all time. But for this culture, for this society right now, some of this is new and fringe and different. And they might not pay, $100 or whatever to go and try some energy healer that they've never met, but they will try a 5-10 minute free energy healing session with someone at the event. And then if they like it, they'll sort of buy it afterwards. And so it's been really fun. The participants get to try all these new things that they might not otherwise try. The healers and vendors get to connect with a whole bunch of people, and it's also a fun way for people who are wanting to practice their modality, especially in that 10-minute time period. Some people think, oh, I'm a trauma therapist. It's hour plus session, blah, 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 blah. And that's Crystal's mom. And she's like, I could never do the speed healing. And we said, just try it. And she was so amazed at how impactful that 10 minutes could be and how it really focused the energy. And it's like, okay, let's go. There's no time for like pleasantries, like what's going on? How can I help? And just dive right in and then, do your best in the 10 minutes and obviously not like go too deep that someone's, way out of it by the end of it. But they, people are able to go deep, have real impact. And then the fact that there's all these healers in one big room, all working together, there's a nice energy around that. It really creates this beautiful vortex that is very unusual. Like you don't see that often of all these healing modalities happening at once. And we have a sound healer in the background. So it really does create a nice ambiance. And then the participants will go from healer to healer, and they tell us that the sessions really build on each other. And there's some sort of, synchronicity in the timing of each one because they get to choose where they're going. And so there's, this one builds on that one, and it's just, yeah, it's really magical. It's super fun.
Well, as you were saying that, that's exactly what I was thinking is how, the energy and I've been to a number of your events, and great job, by the way. I really appreciate the dedication you and Crystal have to the work that you're doing.
Mm.
But the way that the energy compounds, it's like kind of like compound interest or something of that nature where everything builds on each other. And then just all the energy that's around in the room.
Mm.
Because like you say, you talk about energy healing and you talk about some of these different healing modalities. I think the technical term out there in the world today is woo-woo.
Yeah.
And some people don't necessarily, resonate with it. Yet, as you know, and I've experienced, it works,
Mm.
and it's part of being open to it. And if we take a look, back to the days of, Christ and the healing hands and what he would do and how that works. And I think part of it is, you know, as humanity and as people, and this is what I love about just, you calling your organization Unite, bringing people together. There's so much separation in the world today that we need to have these forums and these events and these places where we can all come together as like-minded people, even if we have different opinions on different things and beliefs in regards to what might be going on in the world. But there's a fundamental core belief that brings us together where we're able to, commingle our energies in a way that provides a safe, sacred space and allows for authenticity. And
Mm.
that's the one thing that I'm seeing come to the forefront in a lot of the work we're doing these days is, you know, for people to just take off all their masks and be comfortable and feel safe to be themselves. And in my experience in your events, I see that happen a lot.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. There is an energy when you walk in, and a lot of people. tell us that they feel it right away, and it just feels like, and a lot of people show up on the day who haven't registered, who are just like, I don't know why I'm here, but I saw it and something told me I need to be here. And so there's a lot of, a lot of that where people are just drawn to it. And what's fun is you see the relationships that are formed, especially in the in-person events. There's so much magic from just getting a community together, and it's like all the in-between stuff. Crystal talks about that, the actual event, um, like content is more of just like the carrot on the stick to get people to come, but the magic is in the community and the co-creation and the talks in between, and the breakthroughs that happen in the hallway or whatever, and the connections that are made. And we've had so many stories and met so many people like, oh yeah, I met through Shining Crystal, I met you at a Unite event. And it was just, it feel that for me is one of the funnest parts, is just feeling like, like, okay, we're making these connections and helping people not only feel better for a day at the event, but also really hopefully enriching their lives through the connections and the different people, but also the resources, because we've got a huge Facebook group and online platform and lots of different, ways that we can help people. So it feels really, really good to be able to support that.
Well, I think a word that keeps coming up a lot, as we've been talking so far, is connection and community, and how powerful that is, and where we see, after that crazy couple of years with the pandemic and everything else, the separation was insane. It was really quite bizarre. And I know, even speaking for myself, being quite social and being in events regularly, when I started going out again into events, I actually kind of felt socially awkward. It was like, oh, I got to get kind of used to this again after being kind of isolated for so long. And, these are the kind of gatherings that I think are really important to bring people together so that people can talk and connect and feel safe. And, I think community heals in and of itself. There's an energy in that when we can, connect in that way. And what you're saying about, the connection, it's not just about a fun event, which I think is really great, how you tie what you do, when we talk about the speed healing and the different vendors and the different things at your events, it's always anchored by something that's really quite profound in the sense of the event. Like we had Paul and Kathy Scott from Anahata on last year, leading up to one of your events at the planetarium. And, the work that they do, profound. So it's not just you're going there for one thing to, do the speed healing thing, but you're going there for a main event. You did Parangi, Deodova. You've got another one coming up here, February 16th, I know. And I love that there's a pathway, because one of the things that we look at Conscious Living Network within the radio is, it's one thing to have education. We have a kind of a mandate of, education, experience, transformation. We can get all the education, read all the books and learn everything, and that's all great. Yet experience is always the best teacher. Don't take our word for it. Test it, see how it works for you. Have an experience, and then use that experience to transform your life, and maybe even, God willing, the lives of others that you may touch and impact. Because there's that, mycelial effect of the connections that we make that help, people just have a better everyday life. Because at the end of the day, we all want joy, we all want happiness, we want to end suffering, and I would imagine most people want to have some fun doing it, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The bigger vision for Unite, and the sort of vision that's been bubbling up within me for many, many years, since I'm 42 now, and in my 20s, even my later teens, I was thinking about this, is how do we get when I started learning about all the things in the world, like the violence and poverty and war and all these things, and my reaction was, I want those to be different. I want to see that change, and I want to help. What can I do? How can I be of service to create it's like heaven on earth that we all know is possible, that all the resources are there. It's just sort of the organization really, and the mindset that's required to make it happen. And as I started to really think about, okay, what would it take? It really, after my mom's transformation, the process was called the journey. And there's a process in there where you just feel whatever you're feeling, you feel it fully. And feel it deeper, feel it more. Okay, what's underneath that? Okay, feel it fully, open it up, feel it deeper, feel it more. Okay, what's underneath that? And if you do that, every time I do that, it it leads to this place of bliss, unconditional love, peace, calm, serenity, just that kind of like God space, whatever you want to call it. It's really beautiful, and that's when I actually took the name Shine. My birth name is Kelly Sean McMahon, and I was playing music. I sing and write songs and like English language chants, kind of like kirtan, but in English. And I was wanting a stage name because Kelly McMahon was kind of like, felt like it was a boring stage name. And my dad's last name was Kelly, and my mom's last name was McMahon, so they sort of mixed it. And Sean was the name that they chose for me, and I was like, oh, Kelly Sean, that's cool. And then oh, Shine, past tense, whatever. So Shine Kelly kind of came out of that. But I really started to, before that, I identified as all the bits, like all the parts of me. So I remember an experience where a woman was just like, oh my God, you're so amazing. You're so loving. You're so nice. Just showering me with compliments. And my response in my head was like, no, I'm not. Like sometimes I am, but I'm also these other things and blah, blah, blah. And I remember it being like kind of like a pivotal moment because it just felt meaningful. And after doing enough of that practice of really going down, like into Abraham calls it the emotional scale, kind of going up. And in the journey, it was more like it felt like going down, just really like dropping into those emotions. I really stopped identifying myself as the negative emotions. I started identifying with the peace and serenity that was always at the core. It's like, are you the clouds or are you the sky? And the sky is always there and the clouds come and go. And to me, that's kind of how it felt. And so that's sort of how I took the name Shine. And so anyways, the bigger vision was, how do we actually anchor that on the planet in a long-term sustainable way where we can create heaven on earth? And I thought, oh, it has to be internal. It has to be individuals choosing to focus on feeling better, getting into alignment, because when people are in that state, they make different decisions, they have more energy, synchronicity, all these things happen. And so I knew that was the solution. And then it came, okay, well, how do you get there? Like, how do you convince 8 billion people to like, kind of do things the opposite to the way that most people are doing it, which is like work, doing something you don't like, pain, equals gain. Like we've sort of built society like opposite in some ways to what will actually create heaven on earth, which is probably why a lot of the things are happening. And so that's where the idea for Unite started to form, is like, okay, if we could convince people that feeling good is an important thing and a valuable thing and an essential foundational, most important thing. And then B, help them actually find their path and figure out what would work for them, because each person is different and there's going to be a different path for me. Some days some things work, some days another thing works. So it really depends on where I'm at. And that's where the first idea I had about this was this like hotline, like the John Wick hotline. Like there's a secretary there, and like you call the hotline. This was before iPhones. It's like, my toddler's having a meltdown. Help! And they're like patching you through, and they like put you to like a toddler help coach or something, and then they sort of guide you through it. And that's sort of where the Unite idea came from. Is like, what if we took all the wellness resources and put them in a place where people could search and sort and be connected, and it's super personalized, and now with AI and even blockchain technology to sort of add interoperability between platforms, It's really possible, and it's real. I mean, it's kind of, to me, it feels like it's done. Like it's now it's just sort of doing the work. The all the ideas and all the things are there. So, and I know I'm kind of going on here, but I think uh, the foundation is really this inner self. And in order to create the next level beyond the events where we're actually living in community, which I feel like is more natural for most of us, and living in places like my background, or having beautiful eco towers in cities or eco villages, and really creating conscious community. And there's a lot that are already happening. The number one thing that breaks those things up is the interpersonal stuff. And then if they get through that, it's like, well, it's expensive to start them. It's expensive to run them. There's sometimes not, a business model that works. So that's also part of the long-term vision, is how can we empower the individual so that we're ready to actually take this to the next level and live more in community and in harmony and work together as a global, if people who are all spiritual and wellness focused can't even live together in a community and make that work, how do they expect, China and the US and the Middle East to all get along? Like we gotta start where we are and really set a tone, set an example, and learn the skills and build the strategy so that we can be ambassadors to support creating these bridging these bigger gaps, because there's a lot of big gaps in the world, it seems, different ideologies, very different mindsets. And so it's like, okay, well, how can we be sort of transitional, catalysts for that change? Sorry, I know I'm going on.
That's all right. There's so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
And I think, when you talk about community, like they would used to say, it takes a village to raise a child, and people used to be much more connected than we ever were, or than we are now, and as we move forward in today's world, I think we need to unlearn some of the things that we've been conditioned to believe.
Yeah.
And it comes down to, what I kind of consider blatant consumerism. We get, so caught up in this thought that we have to have more, and more means more and better. And in my book, I don't think it really does, because it makes life even more complex. And we have to be able to balance everything so that we can have good relationships, good health, take care of our body, our mind, our spirit, our relationships, our kids, our community. And if we're just being driven by more and more and more and consume, we're looking for satisfaction outside of ourselves versus having it come from within.
Yeah.
And, I can speak from my own experience where I found less is more. Life is easier. You have a little bit more time for things that are actually more important than just out working your butt off to make more money to get more stuff. For me, more money just means more learning, more growth, more contribution, more giving back. I don't need more stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that when we, especially let's take a look what's happening in the world today. We don't need to be buying all the stuff we're buying and filling the landfills full of junk and plastic and one-off use items. And there's something to be said about that. And it kind of circles back to where you were talking about, when you're into the spiritual world, or this, the woo-woo field, let's say, it's one thing to be able to, go out into the other dimensions or the other realms or that place of spirit. But I believe we have to be able to come back and have at least a foot or two on the ground when it comes down to doing what we need to do. To the key point of what you were saying is sustainability. Is how do we make this sustainable? Because, it's our God-given right to have some joy and happiness and bliss and, survive with good food at the very minimal of what we need as human beings to live a healthy, happy, fulfilled life. Yet if we can't sustain that, how does that work? Because there's a lot of great work being done out there where people are having a hard time from a sustainability factor. But if you put all the black hat magic and all the the tricks of how people sell stuff out there, I don't necessarily think it's the best way to go versus inviting people into experiencing something so that they can then pick their pathway for what works for them. Because as you know, what may work for me or you or for someone else may not work for the next 5 or 10 people or other people in line. But there's so much out there. It's important to find what works for you. And one thing I'd like to just throw out is that one nugget that I like to work with is the tool of using modeling. If you're looking for a solution for something that you want to do, whether it be an ailment, whether it's depression, stress, anxiety, whatever that may be, look for people who had that issue in the past and have overcome it, and learn from them and see what they did. And then do the same thing and see what kind of a result that you get. And you can turn decades into, a month, a week, a day, or an hour or two by doing something different and learning from those who have gone before you. And I think that having the ability to test or try or experience these things in an, let's call it an event, because that's what you do, gives people an opportunity to have a little taste of everything. It's almost like a smorgasbord of healing opportunities, right?
Yeah. Well, and right now, we've built a basic platform for, it's sort of like a new Facebook for wellness with marketplace. So it's social network, and you can buy and sell events and products and services and do speed healing, and it's all web based. And we've got an app for the Love Stream, which is live online events and things like that. And what we're working on now is the speed healing app, and the AI that we're going to build into that, probably in the second version, so probably closer to summer, will start to do exactly what you're saying. It will learn from all the different personal growth and wellness resources out there. People can share their success stories and what's worked for them. And then when someone comes in and it can get to know them over time. And, where do you live? What's your budget? What's your schedule like? What do you like? What works for you? Blah, blah, blah. Starts to get to know you really well. And then if you're, say, wanting to earn more money or wanting to lose weight or wanting to meet more people or have an illness or whatever it is, it can start to pull from, okay, who's had that problem? What were the solutions that worked for them? What would likely work for you based on all of your personality traits and preferences and all that stuff, and budget and have free options, paid options, whatever. And I feel like that's going to be really, really interesting use for this new AI technology. And then that's getting into this, agents that can actually book sessions for you. We have this really cool idea called Epic Quests, where if you have a day off or a date or something fun you want to do, you just go on Unite and you click, I want an epic quest. And then it gives you a few criteria, like I want to be more indoors, more outdoors, alone with people, excitement, relaxation, whatever. So you sort of like fill out a few things of what would you like your experience to be, or just surprise me. And then the platform goes out and it will pick and book a whole series of activities or things to do. And then if it's something that's not in your house, it'll just tell you to go out of your house and follow this map, but it doesn't tell you where you're going. And then you show up, say at like a float spa, and they're like, "Hey, Shine, we've been expecting you," and because they've obviously been booked and told what's going on, and you go for your float. And when you get out, there's someone there like, "Oh, are you Shine? Yeah, we're going for tea together or whatever." And you're like, "I'm also looking to learn about this," and then it'll just sort of create this magical experience based on what it knows about you, and be able to actually book and connect with other people and make it all happen. So it's yeah, I mean, it feels like it's just kind of like toys, like it's just fun. To me, this is just the stepping stone between where we are now and where, like, Bashar, Bashar,
Yeah, Bashar's amazing. I love that guy.
I love Bashar. For people who don't know, but who know Abraham Hicks, Bashar is like Abraham, but an alien. And apparently
Right.
Bashar's planet is purely runs on synchronicity. That's the currency. There's no money other than just being in the right place at the right time and receiving or offering whatever you want, and everything
And
just sort of flows.
what I love about one of the things that Bashar teaches, and when people stand up and ask him questions, it always boils down to some of the same stuff. And the thing that always strikes me the most, and it's an important thing that I use and I share with people regularly, is follow what excites you the most.
Yeah,
If it doesn't excite you and you're doing it because you think it's money or
right.
something of that nature, and it doesn't excite you, but you're doing it for the money or you're doing it for the recognition or you're doing it for whatever your reason you're doing it, if it doesn't excite you, you're going down the wrong path,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think it's so simply profound that how many people get up every day and go do something for 8 hours a day that doesn't excite them, that doesn't light them up, that doesn't give them joy and happiness and pleasure, and and the other side of the coin is, if it doesn't, how do you make it so you're enjoying the moment and being present? Because this is the whole thing about being present and finding joy in whatever it is you're doing, no matter what, right?
Yeah, yeah. Abraham has a good one on that, where if you're in a situation that you don't love, the fastest way to move out of it without kind of running away from it from a perspective of like just sort of you leave one bad relationship and run into another one is to make it the best ever. And like if you're working a job that you're not crazy about, but it doesn't feel easy to just quit, just make it the most amazing. Try and have the most fun possible. Just love it. And then either the job will sort of start to like bend to meet your new vibration
Yeah.
and match you in some way and expand or change, or you'll sort of spiral out of that into a new thing, and the new thing will sort of draw you and you'll be moving towards what you want rather than away from what you don't want. And I've done that multiple times and it's really, really powerful.
Well,
And
it's like you say that, the vibration, you're changing the vibration and you'll attract that of which you really seek, what you really want, because people will be like, oh, wow, I want what you're having. What are you doing? And there's no real magic pill in that sense, except being present.
mm,
And, when you're not present, time drags, it goes slow. This is where depression happens. This is where fatigue, where frustration and your joy just gets sapped, because again, we're focusing our mind on everything that we don't want and how bad it is versus how can I make this great, you know? And it's the way I operate, because sometimes there's things that we do that we don't like. Part of the Tony Fire Team thing we always say is, we have a saying, embrace the suck. You know, when you got to sweep a big conference parking lot all day long in the scorching heat because you're going to walk 10,000 people across fire, man, I'll tell you what, it sucks. But we embrace it. And what do? We sing, we have fun, we be silly, we do things so that we can enjoy what we're doing, even though sweeping a massive parking lot can really suck. So we embrace it and have fun with it. And I think that that's, a fundamental lesson we all can adopt in life. And don't take my word for it, but give it a shot. And when you show up in a playful way in things that might be seen as no fun at all,
mm,
life and the experience changes. Because as you know, it's our mindset, or what we're thinking about, what we're doing at the end of the
mm,
day, that gives it its reality and its definition and its meaning, and then the emotion that comes with that, right?
mm. Yeah. Yeah, that reminded me of I've since when my mom went through her big big breakthrough, and the journey process was all about kind of going back and healing past trauma and feeling feelings fully to sort of free yourself from the triggers and the things that would come up in the present. And I sort of took it a level too far, where I thought, if I could just, what if I just got ahead of it and I just went out and tried to like heal all the traumas that I could find within my being and just like one by one, just methodically go through it, even if it took years. It's like, spend however much time it takes to clean all that trauma out and then be fine for the rest of eternity or for the rest of my life and have no trauma. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. I'll be efficient here. And what I learned from that was, right? What I learned from that was actually when you focus on the trauma and finding it and healing it, you're actually creating more of it because you're attracting more of it. You're activating more of it. But I was also, so I stopped doing that and it kind of spiraled and got worse and was not helpful. And then I actually saw Abraham Hicks. We went on this beautiful cruise in the Mediterranean. Highly recommend Abraham Hicks events, cruises. The cruise is the best. So went there, had a big breakthrough of just surrendering and getting in the flow and listening to her. But I would still come up against these triggers, and this stuff would come up. And so I would be in a really good state, but then I would come back into things that were familiar and triggering. And I would it felt like I would even, because I was in such a high state, the trigger felt worse. And it felt like I was just hitting these brick walls of like stress and things. And so it felt like there needed to be some way to sort of release some of the pressure without activating more of it. And what I learned was, and it's ever evolving and it might this might change tomorrow, but so far what I've learned is by meditating and just getting into that still, quiet mind space. And then if I can meditate to the point where my goal isn't to stop thought, my goal is to create sort of a clear space where I can receive thoughts that are coming from my higher self is the way that I put it. And so the way that I do that is by stopping thought, but not being, but being really mindful of when it switches from busy mind, monkey mind, negative thoughts, whatever, to I'm not thinking this thought. I'm not trying to think this thought. I'm trying to focus on my breath, but these beautiful thoughts and feelings just start coming in. So when I hit that point, Abraham Hicks calls that the receiving mode. And so I would just start going for these walks and these drives or lay in bed or whatever. And I would just stay in this receiving mode. And it would just be simple thoughts like, all is well. I know it's coming. There's no rush. I got this. You're so smart, so brilliant, so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Just really general positive thoughts. And I found that if I would just stay there for sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes 1 minute, sometimes hours, but if I would just stick with that, I would get into these like elevated states where the thought would go from general positive to specific positive, and it would start to, okay, area of life, blah, 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 like get more and more in detail. And then the thought would go, what do you want to talk about? And then it was quiet. And then I could just ask questions and I would get responses that I wasn't thinking of. And so I was in that channeling state, just like Abraham and the people who channel Abraham and Bashar. And one day I thought, I kept kind of going in this cycle of I'm going to go for a walk, go for a drive. I'd go for an hour, 2 or 3, have this beautiful, blissful experience, get right into the zone, come home, bam, like smash up against the wall of triggers. And I was like, there's got to be something here to like deal with this. So one day I was like, hey, I'm just going to drive all day. So I just drove to Kelowna and back for like 12 hours from Vancouver, 6 hours there, 6 hours back. In a Tesla, it takes that long.
I was just going to say that was a long drive to Kelowna.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to drive all day and just see what happens if all I do is just stay in that receptive mode, that state where I'm actively not thinking, but I'm just receiving. What happens? And what I noticed was somewhere befit merit. People is like 2 or 3.
I thought it might be somewhere before hope. No,
right? No. It takes me a while to get in there. So somewhere, in the country, I started getting I started receiving thoughts that were specifically soothing triggers that I had had that were sort of active in my sphere. And most of the drive for probably 10 of the 12 hours were just that. We're just sort of cleaning up, soothing. And I kept checking in. I'm like, because I pushed it pretty hard to the point where I attracted some not nice things. And so I was a little nervous about going back into that world of trying to like heal or clear or whatever, clean up triggers. And I kept getting, no, no, that's fine. And Abraham actually talked about that the the time to really think about the things that are the most triggering, if they do need attention, if it's something that kind of, it's not going away and it just repeats, or it's just sitting there and it's annoying that it's, you're not dealing with it. The time to do that is when you're in a really good place, and to kind of let yourself be guided to it.
Yeah, you've got to be in a good state anytime you're going to make any key decisions
Mm.
or anything. We always say you'll never make your best decision if you're not in a great state, in a great emotional place, or if you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're in a place of fear, frustration, sadness, overwhelm, depression, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's not the best time to be making important decisions because we
Yeah.
don't make our best decisions at that time, right?
Yeah. Well, because you're in that fearful state, and so you see the fearful outcome, and so you're going to likely make a different decision than if you're in a clear state. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
what I've gotten to now is, if I can get into that sort of surrendered state. The first time I ever had this was, I was so wound up and just triggered and going for a walk and feeling terrible. And I thought, you know what? I give up. Like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to do. This isn't working. I'm just going to not do anything. I'm just going to surrender. And when I just surrendered and I thought, I'm not going to try and meditate, I'm just going to do nothing. I'm just going to absolutely surrender, not think, do nothing, not try. And that was my first experience of getting into this sort of flow state, and having these triggers sort of like move through my body and naturally kind of release, to the point where I got into this elevated state and felt really good. And now what I'm going through is, in every moment I try and just be in that surrendered state and be open to what wants to happen. And what's been happening lately is a lot of deep, like, breath work and healing. And it's breath work that's the it feels like crying, but there's no tears. It's like deep uh, crying, breathing, basically. And it's just moving through a lot of these old emotional things. And it's not me trying to heal them or thinking that I need to heal them or whatever. It's just me, okay, I'm going to surrender. All right, what wants to happen? And allowing it to happen. And I realized that it's different, because before I was trying to go after it and I wasn't paying attention. It's kind of like I wanted to get somewhere. And so I thought, I'm just going to floor it the whole way. I'm just going to full gas the whole way there and not pay attention to my surroundings, not care where there's a turn coming up. Of course I'm going to crash. Whereas being in that surrendered state, it's like, okay, I'm going to be guided. I'll know when it's the time to get into this deeper breathwork stuff, and when it's the time to not, and when it's the time to focus on this project, and when it's the time to focus on this project. And so I'm really getting into that state now, and it feels like it's a big breakthrough moment for me, where I'm just surrendering and letting myself be guided, letting myself kind of focus on what feels most exciting, highest excitement, all that stuff, while also having I guess, the space and the ability to sort of move through some of those things that can be triggering, or that, can impede that flow, and being in a positive state.
Beautifully said. And that word surrender is so important. It comes up in the plant medicine world a lot as well. You got to surrender to the medicine,
Yeah.
surrender to yourself, surrender to spirit, and just be, and take a moment and as much time as you need to be in that silence. I drive a lot and I love driving, and drive in silence so much. And I just, surrender to that. Now, we do have to wrap up. We've got a few minutes left, Shine, so let's shift gears. Let's talk about what you've got coming up on February 16th and maybe in the near future for our local Vancouver community, and how they can get a hold of you if they want to learn more about the work you're doing. We've got about 3 to 4 minutes.
Love it. So February 16th, St. James Community Square, Kitsilano, 2 p.m. till 6 p.m. We're doing speed healing, and you can come just for the afternoon or buy a full day ticket or just come for the evening. The evening is going to be a mixture of, I'm going to play a few songs, so we're going to chant together and get the energy really vibing. We have a beautiful cacao ceremony with Anki and Miriam from Sacred Mexico. Big shout out.
Love Anki.
Amazing.
Anki and Miriam are fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're actually going to be doing the first ever flow state workshop, which is exactly what I've just been describing, which, you know, is very synchronous, because it wasn't a part of a pitch. So we're going to sort of go through and lay down or sit and get comfortable and practice surrendering and just see what it feels like. And I'm going to do a few guided processes so you can really feel the difference between when you're trying to meditate versus in that surrendered meditational state, which are very different, versus, you know, the monkey mind and all that stuff. And I think it'll be really, really helpful for people. And then we have this beautiful live DJ fusion dance party. Craig, our dear friend Craig Guest, is DJing, and we've got Darren on the didgeridoo. We've got violin with Michael Fraser, and I'm blanking on his name, but he plays the djembe, and he plays the taiko drums, the Japanese drums, and he's gonna be playing the djembe. So we're gonna have an epic tribal dance party to close out the evening. And yeah, that's February 16th. You can get all the details are on unite.love. And and you can go to unite.love/events, and that'll show you all of our events and also the community events that are coming up. And that's where you can learn about the platform, and you can find speed healing on there. You just go to unite.love/products. We haven't built the speed healing page yet, and there's speed healing options in there. And yeah, that's
great. Well, I look forward to the event because I know, you know, the impact that it has on people, and I can speak for myself. Every time I attend it, it's always like, I needed that. And that I really love. So I just want to say thank you, Shine, to you and Crystal for the work that you're doing, to all the people who come out and support your work and share their gifts with the community, so that people can really have a better everyday life and, you know, enjoy life, because that's what we're here to do. And I just want to thank you for the work you're doing again, because again, it's profound, and people need to have these avenues to experience something different that can literally and practically make a difference. So thank you for that. You've been listening to Conscious Living Radio here on 100.5 FM CFRO in Vancouver. My name is Marc Caron, and until next time, take care of each other, everyone.
You have been listening to Conscious Living Radio. For free show downloads, additional information about our guests and topics, or details about upcoming programs, check us out at consciousliving.radio.org.